Imagine if you were a slave in Rome and you're hearing this chapter in one reading of an evening before you had to skedaddle back off quietly, pretending you didn't go out for the night. The effect it would have on you, because it's saying that there's someone mightier than Caesar who can do something Caesar can't, and that is heal. And at no point has anyone been brought to light who's rich and famous.
No.
Quite an amazing thing to hear at that place and time.
Yes, he was quite an amazing man, this Jesus of Nazareth. I can remember years ago when I was talking to my old nan, and we were talking about a time machine. And I said to her, so Nan, if you had a time machine, where would you like to go back? And she looks at me and said, I don't know, Steve, love, what about you? Where would you like to go back? And I said, you know what, Nan, I'd like to go back to the beginning of time, and I'd love to see how it all happened and how did this God do it? How did it all come together? Because it'd be fascinating. What about you, Nan? When would you like to go back? And she said, I'd like to go back and see Jesus. And I looked at her and went, you what? I didn't understand it. I get it now.
Where would you go now?
I'd like to go back and see Jesus, because he is the most amazing character in the history of our timeline. And I think to see him would be staggering, what it could do for you.
How much of that was in hindsight? Because so many people at the time didn't get it. They didn't understand it. His family didn't get it. Certainly the ones in charge, the Sanhedrin, possibly didn't want to get it. There was possibly a couple that did. Why do you think that was?
I think because he was very unextraordinary to look at. I would imagine that he would have looked like any other Jewish man of the time. I don't think there was anything that stood him out head and shoulders above everybody else. I suspect that where you would have got a sense of who he was when you spent time in his presence, listening to him, sitting with him, watching the way that he conducted himself. But I don't think there would have been any Hollywood good looks and forbidden physical prowess that would have attracted your eye to him. He's the sort of guy, I think, that you'd have walked past in the street until he spoke, and then I think he would have captured something inside of you. Wouldn't want to go back to see him so that I could hero worship on the incredible individual who's in front of me, but so that his presence could flood over you. And I think one of the beautiful things with Jesus in Scripture, which we might touch on in Mark, I'm not sure, is children came to him. Children were attracted to him.
Yeah.
Children are not attracted to grumpy, miserable, forbidden, horrible people. They avoid them like the plague. But when somebody has got a warm and a welcoming presence, children gravitate to that because there's that innocence in them that recognises that there's something there that is non-threatening and all-encompassing. You get it with kids all the time. And Jesus must have, given that out in buckets.